Where'd those raisins come from?
Well, the lady makes the raisins.
Which lady?
Well, look on the picture.
We all know the Sun-Maid lady. Growing up, we all watched the Sun-Maid commercials. In a world of He-Man toys and Saturday morning cartoons, these commercials had a very calming presence, with a very motherly mascot. The Sun-Maid lady has been there our whole lives, and even today when you go into the grocery store, there she is, unchanged, a relic from our childhood. But even though we know her face and have spent our entire lives with her in it, one basic question still comes to mind. Who is she? In 1873, Francis T. Eisen planted an experimental vineyard of grapes in Fresno, California. 5 years later, packaged raisins were being shipped out of state, and by 1903, California was producing 120 million pounds of raisins a year. And in 1912, raisin farmers grouped together to establish the California Associated Raisin Company in Fresno, California. In an effort to promote this newly formed company, advertising director E.A. Berg had an inspiration. Since raisins were made by drying grapes in the sun, what about calling them Sun-Maid, and expanding on that theme by associating them with a pretty girl called the Sun-Maid? To help promote the new Sun-Maid concept, the company planned to open a booth at the Panama Pacific International Exposition staged in San Francisco in 1915.
The fair had everything. When you tired of the auto racing, you could always watch the camels run. That is, if you weren't chasing after the penny toss car, or gawking at the movie stars and celebrities. Arbuckle and Mabel Normand, for instance, or listening to John Philip Sousa lead the band in the Court of the Universe. There were daredevils to amaze you. Some were in the water and others in the air. There was plenty of culture and history too, beautiful girls and beautiful animals. It was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to San Francisco.
This was a huge World's Fair, intending to celebrate the rebirth of the city after the disastrous earthquake and fire of 1906. At that time, local high school student Lorraine Collett heard about the expo from her father and brother, who were both employees of the newly established California Associated Raisin Company. One of the executives of the company, Leroy Payne, visited her father and brother at their home and spotted Lorraine in the backyard drying her curly brown hair and wearing her mother's red bonnet. Something about the contrast of colors between her white blouse with blue piping and red bonnet against her brown hair under the California sun struck Leroy as the perfect look for the Sun-Maid. After discussing, Lorraine Collett agreed to appear in the San Francisco Bulletin in her outfit as a model to promote the Sun-Maid's activities at the exposition. The company's idea for the expo started growing. In addition to having the booth, now the idea was also to have a number of Sun-Maids at the expo who would wear bonnets and gowns, outfits similar to the one worn by Lorraine, and hand out boxes of raisins to visitors. Lorraine was hired to promote the raisin industry, and when the day of the expo arrived, Lorraine joined the campaign and attended as one of the Sun-Maids herself. She kept busy during the 10-month exposition, which lasted from February 20th to December 4th, 1915. She and the other Sun-Maids went around the fairgrounds passing out raisins to the visitors. But the California Associated Raisin Company had an even bigger plan for her. They had this crazy idea to put Lorraine in an airplane to fly above the compound and scatter raisin rainfalls on the fairgrounds and all the visitors below, which she did. I'm not sure how effective this was for brand awareness, or if visitors appreciated having raisins fall on them at terminal velocity. But in any case, the company decided to move forward with using Lorraine as their corporate mascot. So, during the expo, they commissioned a watercolor portrait of Lorraine from San Francisco artist Fanny Scafford to use as the basis for the Sun-Maid corporate mascot. During her time at the expo, Lorraine posed at the Post Street studio in the morning and then spent the rest of the day working the expo with the other Sun-Maids. The artists experimented with a variety of positions and props, finally settling on the pose with an overflowing tray of grapes and a glowing sunburst in the background. In 1916, a year after the expo, company executives agreed Collett would become the personification of the company. So her likeness was quickly trademarked, and she began appearing on raisin packaging nationwide. After modeling for Sun-Maid, Lorraine moved to Hollywood to try to become an actress, and had a small role in the movie The Trail of the Lonesome Pine, but ultimately returned to Fresno after her father decided she should not be in Hollywood. The use of Lorraine's image was so successful in promoting its products that by 1920 the California Associated Raisin Company adopted Sun-Maid as its new name to identify more closely with their nationally recognized brand. Backed by an aggressive marketing push throughout the 20s, Sun-Maid managed to triple American consumption of raisins by the end of the decade. In 1923, the original image of the Sun-Maid was modified for the first time, giving her a bigger smile, brighter colors, and a stylized sun. This contemporary look was in style with the 1920s. In 1956, the trademark was updated for a second time. The sun was moved off-center, intensifying the effect of the sunshine with the bonnet, casting a shadow across the Sun-Maid's face. In 1970, brighter colors and a geometric sun were used to modernize the logo, with the brand's name now printed in yellow for a warmer, sunnier feel.
I notice you're eating America's favorite raisin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they make you strong?
Feel my muscles.
Think you can eat a whole box of Sun-Maid raisins?
Piece of cake.
This version of the logo was created by John Lichtenwallner, a freelance commercial artist in San Francisco. Lichtenwallner used the previous versions of the Sun-Maid to create a cleaner version of the character, but also used a different model. The model for the updated portrait was a company employee, Delia von Meyer. Delia didn't know she was going to become the new face of Sun-Maid raisins, and seeing her face on the box came as a surprise to her. She recounts being called into the art department at work. There, she thought they wanted to find out about her art interests, but instead, the artist asked her for a favor, to hold a tray so he could draw her hands. Thinking nothing of it since she was a freelance model at the time, she volunteered and held the tray. As the artist sketched the image, he was telling Delia about the changes being made to the Sun-Maid image and the package. They were modernizing it. More importantly, it was to be kept with the same recognizable pose. Later, some of Delia's co-workers started calling her the Raisin Gal. She thought it was funny until she went back to the art department and saw the painting, and to her surprise it looked just like her. This version of the Sun-Maid girl continues on packages today. Even though her likeness had changed on the logo, Lorraine Collett continued to work well into her 80s, making appearances in her trademark costume. In 1974, Lorraine was presented with a commemorative plaque by Sun-Maid's president at a ceremony where she also presented her original red bonnet to the company in exchange for $1,700. In 1983, at the age of 90, Lorraine Collett Peterson, the model for the glowing young woman on the Sun-Maid raisin box, passed away. Not many mascots from the turn of the century are still around today, so it speaks to her impact on society that her iconic image has survived the test of time. Other contemporary mascots of her time that are still around today include the Quaker Oats Man and Mr. Peanut, where others like Aunt Jemima have been retired. In 1987, Sun-Maid executives donated Collett's bonnet to the Smithsonian Institution on the occasion of the company's 75th anniversary. And in 2003, all product packaging was converted to red and yellow, creating an eye-catching and memorable brand look that's made multiple appearances in pop culture, like Sesame Street, The Simpsons, and Reader's Digest, where Sun-Maid was voted America's best-lasting logo in 2007. Personally, and I know this sounds funny, but as a kid I thought the Sun-Maid lady was my mom, or more so that my mom was the Sun-Maid lady. My mom looked so similar to her back in the 80s, with her long, wavy brown hair and warm smile. It made all the sense in the world to me that someone would put my mom on a box. Unlike other mascots that are high energy and bounce all over the place, the Sun-Maid lady has a very caring, motherly presence. She has a loving smile and a basket full of nourishing food, like a mom. I have no idea who Lorraine was as a person, but I like to think that she was kind. It must be strange to be immortalized because your dad's boss visited your house once and liked how you looked that day, instead of being remembered for other things where you actually tried to make an impact. But a very loving energy came through her painting, and 75 years later, as a child, I was still touched by Lorraine's nurturing calm.